Hey, Tori here. Welcome back. Can you believe that we've started our fourth and final session of the dream? This has been an incredible journey that we've been on together throughout this month. And you know, we all came into this group in different places spiritually. And this week would make for a great opportunity to stop, reflect, and talk about where we are now and where we are heading as a group, as well as our own personal relationship with the Lord. So here's a couple starter questions to discuss together before we dive into the session. How have you been changed by what you've learned during the past few weeks? What steps could you start taking today to help you grow even closer to Jesus? Go ahead and pause the video now and talk through these questions as a group before we start the teaching. Last week, we talked about serving together as a group once we finished the dream. In case you missed it, we are doing a Go Love Columbus month, all next month, with serving opportunities every day. We want every group to get out and serve together in the community at least one time. So if you haven't already, go check out the various serving opportunities and pick the one that your group wants to do together. Once you land on it, put it on the calendar, get out there, and go make it happen. Now would also be a good time to start discussing what study your group will be doing next as you go forward and continue meeting during the next month. We recommend the Talk About It resource provided online at cypresschurch.tv, as it pairs with the weekend teaching, providing video content and discussion questions every week. However, if you choose to do a different study, that's great. Just please be sure to run it by your campus pastor for approval first. I think you're really going to enjoy what Pastor Drew has to share during this last session of the dream. Let's go ahead and pause the video real quick to read Genesis 50 before we turn it over to Pastor Drew for this week's teaching.
Hey, so glad you guys are here, and welcome to week 4 of our discussion of the dream. Looking at the life of Joseph and all that he went through, and maybe even taking a look at some of our own dreams and seeing how we could potentially move towards achieving some of those along the way. You know, it's fun to think about as we grow up. You know, as little boys and little girls, we all had big dreams and aspirations of who we were going to become and what we were going to do. Maybe it was to become a firefighter or to be that princess. And as life goes on, we've all kind of hit that stage where we've grown up and, well, frankly, reality has set in. And, you know, maybe we didn't get that job, or we didn't make that team, or we haven't got married yet, or maybe we didn't even stay married. But ultimately, for many of us, that happily ever after that we grew up dreaming about, it isn't reality for us today. And for some of us, it even leaves us feeling maybe stuck in our lives or defeated. Or even get to the point now where to think about some of the dreams we've had, it becomes painful or depressing. And quite honestly, we just kind of have maybe given up on some of them. Well, today I want to challenge us all to maybe change that. Because maybe it's time for us to get moving and to start doing something about it, and maybe start seeing where God could take some of those dreams. Hey, first thing I want to remind us of is when it comes to our dreams, it takes action, not just thought. We can think about doing it all day, but that's not going to make any of our dreams become reality. And so it's the actions that we do today that could actually lead to the fulfillment of our dreams tomorrow, or some of the outcomes that we're looking for in life. Because ultimately, if we're not satisfied with where we are today, it's probably time to change something. If we're not content with our lives as we see it, well, folks, I'm going to challenge you. It's time to get moving. You know, Joseph had dreams when he was younger in life, but it was years later and over time when those dreams became reality. And so I want to challenge each one of us to think about, where are we going in our future? And I want to give us 4 discussion questions to maybe throw around as a group together to talk about how do we want to begin to move towards some of the dreams and some of the gifts that God has given us maybe for our future. So the first one I want to ask you is this: what's in your hand? I know it's a kind of a goofy sounding question, what's in your hand? But going back to Moses in the book of Exodus, in chapter 4, verse 2, when Moses was given the challenge of leading the Israelites out of captivity from the Egyptians, he was honestly scared to death. He actually tried to talk God out of doing it. And he started asking God, how do I do this? And one of the great questions God asked him was, what's in your hand? And for Moses, the answer was his staff. And God ended up teaching Moses how to do some amazing things with that staff to prove that God was with him and behind him. And so for each one of us, I want to ask you the question, what are the gifts you have today? What are the things that God has given you? What are some of the things maybe we can even share around our circle of what are some of the things we have? Maybe it's our time, maybe it's our talents. What do you get passionate about? What are some of the gifts that God's given you or your skills? Maybe even talking about what are some of the obstacles we've overcome that have made us stronger. Maybe it's our education, our knowledge. We all have things in our possession today that really could help us move forward towards our dreams tomorrow. So the first step is becoming faithful in using what we've been given now so that God will bless us with more. The second question I want to throw at us to maybe talk about it is this: where are you headed? Because for many of us, it might be decision time. Meaning it might be time to do something different. See, the reality is, I know for me in my life, as I've looked back, that unfulfilled dreams can sometimes push us to just settle or to give up. And the reality is they're going to push us in one of two directions. Unfulfilled dreams or maybe just discontent in life is going to push us to either just settle for where we are and not do anything, or to strive for more. And ultimately, if we ever want to achieve the dreams that we have, or maybe the gifts and goals that God's put in front of us, we have to strive for more. We cannot settle and do nothing. It comes down to, do you want to have better relationships, or do you just want to settle for the ones you have? Do we want to earn a living, or do we want to make a life? Do we want to take advantage of opportunities if they come in front of us, or do we want to just settle and stay right where we are? Change and moving forward only comes when we make the decision to do something. Third question I'd love for us to talk about is how are we going to get there? Meaning it's time to set a goal. Once we make a decision to make a difference in our lives, we've got to set a goal to move forward. I love what John Grisham, the great author, said. He said, you don't become an author by thinking about writing a book. You become one by writing a page a day. And it takes work to get results. If we're not willing to put the effort in or the work or the time in, then we shouldn't be surprised when we don't get the results, when we don't achieve maybe some of the things or goals that we want to go after. See, folks, ultimately it was Joseph being faithful over time that he was able to see his dreams fulfilled. He didn't give up. He didn't let the hardship set him back. He worked at it daily, and over time, he saw God do exactly what he promised he would do. The fourth question I want to challenge you guys to talk about is this: what are you committed to do? I love Galatians 6:9. It says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest, and catch this, if we do not give up. What a great reminder. If we do not give up. Are we willing to persevere? Are you willing to push through the hard times and the struggles of life to move forward to what God may have for you on the other side? See, I think perseverance actually starts with an attitude. I've seen it so many times where two people are faced with the exact same struggle. Maybe it's a medical diagnosis. They're faced with the exact same condition, and here they're going to have the same outcome. And to one, that simple little challenge is enough for them to decide, I'm going to defeat this thing. I'm not going to give up. And another, facing the exact same issue, may end up just saying, I'm done. May just give up. See, I think perseverance starts with an attitude. Are you willing to work through things? Are you committed to do it? Are you willing to do exactly what Paul says? Do not give up. I'm sure there's times in life when we face struggles and issues where we all wanted to give up. I've been there. But when we work through them, man, the satisfaction on the other side is so much more fun. I love how Joseph, when he was finally at the end of the story in Genesis chapter 50, talking to his brothers about all that had happened, all that had transpired. And it's Genesis 50:20, and I'm paraphrasing here, but ultimately Joseph looked at his brothers and he talked about what happened, and he said, the things you guys intended for harm, God used for good. And in the end, lives were saved. And it all comes down to Joseph was willing, he was committed to work through it. Think of all the struggles he had. His brothers had sold him. He was in a slavery. He was thrown in prison. All the ups and downs in life, but he never gave up. What are some of the hurts and pains and struggles that maybe you've dealt with in your life? How have you overcome them? How have God used them to strengthen you? Maybe some of you even right now are facing struggles and pains, and you just need to be reminded it starts with my attitude. How may God use the struggle that you're in right now to get you to a new level in life, to a new place, closer to the dreams that maybe you want to see fulfilled or that he's promised you could happen? Hey, so again, as you begin to transition into your group discussion time, 4 questions I want you to consider. Number 1, what's in your hand? What are the gifts that God's given you to use? Where are you headed? What are some of the dreams you'd love to see happen in your lives? How are you going to get there? And then ultimately, what are you committed to do? Are you willing to persevere through the hurts, struggles, and pains along the way to see what God may do on the other side? Have a great group discussion, challenge and encourage each other in these next few moments.